Okay, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to our conversation, The Opener, a dialogue on gender expansiveness, where we will be talking a bit about trans issues in the region, but also in celebration of Trans Awareness Week. We want to just take a moment to actually give some space to the topics that are kind of in the mainstream right now. Of course, we've been discussing a few different, really contentious mainstream issues. But we'd also like to take a minute to give actual trans activists or folks who are engaged in trans activism a platform to share their own experiences. And this conversation is going to be going live on Trans Remembrance Day on November 20th. And as our dearly beloved Brandy Rodriguez has recently transitioned to Ancestor and to guidance for us, we would like to take a minute to just dedicate this to her. So to get things started, I want to introduce my panel for the evening. Joining me will be Claire and Lewis from Trans and NBTT, as well as our colleague, our Guyanese trans activist, Twinkle. I want to take a moment to just welcome everybody. My name is elysse Marcellin. I am one of the directors of Momantra, and I will be facilitating this conversation this evening. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of this conversation. I want to just kind of quickly jump into things because I recognize that, this is a very interesting year generally for how things have been going in the world. There's been a lot happening all over the planet, but one of the most recent things that has taken place, of course, that has blown up all over the social media, all over social media and the internet, has been, this issue of Dave Chappelle's commentary on trans lives and trans identities. But we also know that that's not the only space in which the trans identity has been discussed. Of course, the closer was one space, but then there's been recently, a BBC article that was very transphobic. There's also been more positive lights where we've seen, for example, the 𝐄𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 Generation Q has focused on trans identities in a more positive way. So I wanted to talk to you all about how would you like to see trans identities portrayed in the media, and what story would you like to see being told? And I want to start now with Claire from Trans and NBTT. Claire, can you share your thoughts on that? Claire, can you hear us? I don't know if you unmuted.
Right, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so what comes to mind when thinking about these recent topics? Um, Basically, all I could say is that Dave Chappelle, he he made it, yay for him, right? Now, here's the thing about Dave's whole act that he put on there. He thinks that he's doing something good by making people laugh, but he fails to realize that it's only one set of people he's making laugh, while an entire population of transgender, non binary people, they're being ridiculed, they're being mocked. And it's not like we're all criminals, it's not like we're all committing crimes, it's not like we're hurting anyone. We're being ridiculed for just existing. And that's just distasteful. That is not comedy. That is disrespect. Right? That's as nice as I'm gonna put it. He's just being very disrespectful and unprofessional. Yeah. Apart from that, I haven't read the BBC article because right now I'm trying to stay focused on school, right? I'm trying to get myself out there and, be independent, right? But with regards to that, I've always known BBC was one of the biggest in terms of being a news, a broadcasting network or whatever it is. I've known that since I was a child growing up. I know about BBC, and to hear them doing this article, this transphobic article, it doesn't really hurt me, but it makes me feel some discomfort. It makes me feel a level of discomfort knowing that after all these years I've been reading article after article from BBC itself. And then all of a sudden when I hear that they made a transphobic article, I just feel like I don't want to read it. But I know I should read it to see exactly what it is. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. It's like I'm living under a rock lately. I think the better person to share his opinion on this is Lewis. So take it away, Lewis. The mic is yours now.
Lewis, can you hear us? I'd like to invite you to share your thoughts on that and also to kind of add, from your perspective, what do you think would be important to add into the mainstream in terms of trans representation? What would you be hoping to see as opposed to what has kind of entered into the mainstream recently?
Right. So I haven't really gotten into the meat of the article, but can you just run it by me again? I believe that it's BBC was talking about trans women and lesbians and lesbian relationships. Was that the idea behind it? And
Sure.
about trans people kind of pressuring people to be, to accept them. I feel like in the media, there's a lot of what's being portrayed as the opposite of reality. You're seeing trans women being talked about like predators, that they want to go into women's bathrooms to attack women or sexually assault women. Trans people on the whole are being talked about like if we're trying to force people to be with us or trick people or to force people to accept our pronouns, and that we're snowflakes, we can't handle any kind of pressure. But this is the opposite, because we handle a lot of pressure every day. The violence that is going on, 99% of the time it's targeted towards us and not the other way around. So we I was just reading Claire's message, right? So most of the time it is trans women being attacked, being beaten in these bathrooms. In fact, the only reported case that is well known of an assault in a bathroom, fun fact, is actually by a senator, by a U.S. senator, a straight man. I forgot his name. But so, if it is that there's this senator that is assaulting people in bathrooms, should it be the case that they should ban senators from bathrooms? And then in this case, they're not finding trans women that are assaulting anybody. Just statistically, that's just not a thing. And if it was really that they are concerned about consent, and they're concerned about coercion and stuff like that, why don't they, talk about consent? Why don't they talk about banning predators from bathrooms? Why is it trans women? It's always trying to make it seem like if we are trying to do something, when usually it's the other way around. Like, I know I'm going on a little bit long, but like, lastly, I would just like to say, especially with pronouns, a lot of people would say to me, why and they act kind of oppressed, like I'm having trouble with your pronouns, and then they say the wrong pronouns and they're like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt you. And look, as a trans guy, my pronouns, they're he, him. I am incapable. People say trans people are forcing pronouns on people. I am incapable of forcing anybody to use my pronouns. I am incapable physically. I can't do it. I can't force you to say anything. I am just gonna explain, why this is who I am, and then the sort of logistics and biology and whatever behind why I am the way that I am, and tell you this is what makes me feel happy. And if you don't want to do it, I can't force you to do it. I'm just saying this is who I am. And some people see us saying this is who I am. I am a woman and I'm a lesbian as a trans woman. Like I'm a lesbian, and they see it as us trying to insert ourselves into your life. We're not trying to insert ourselves into your life. We're not trying to change your life. We are just trying to live our life. So it's not about cis people. It's not about you. We're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to like change your gender roles. We're not trying to, make you do anything differently. We are just trying to live our life. So I'm sorry I went on a little bit long. I probably could talk about this for way longer, but this is what I have to say about it. Thank you so much for listening.
No, don't worry. There's no need to apologize. And I mean, this is a conversation, right? So we'll have some moments to talk about all of these things in a different light as well. And I wanna bring you into the conversation now, Twinkle, and ask as well about what do you think is the effect of the way that people sort of bring trans issues to light from uninformed perspectives? What do you think is the effect of that on our communities? And how do you think that we can have more holistic or more, I guess, engaging conversations around our issues more specifically?
So, I mean, if we're talking about two things about the effect and how do we have more holistic conversation, I would plainly say the effect is violence. When people say things that are not true about our community, the effect is violence. Let's say for one of the things, if we want to talk about Dave Chappelle, simply saying like it's easier for whatever. I'll just because I don't like that controversial individual, I just say Jenner. It's easier for Jenner to get their name changed, but not for to get their gender changed, but not for somebody to get their name changed. Somebody he was referring to, and the thing about it, what he failed to recognize in that process, that Jenner is quite well off. That's a rich person, a rich white person, who is quite privileged and could put their hands on these things. So now the effect of this is when people who can't really see what he's saying from a lens of my side, they will think, oh, well, yeah, it's so easy for these people to get, or trans people to get whatever they want, and they're feeling like they're being robbed of something. So, and the direct effect of straight people feeling like they're left out or they're not getting something that trans people have access to is violence. And to the second part of how could we be more inclusive, or how could we address this, I think it's basic education. I think so I personally never knew of Dave Chappelle until this incident. I just don't know. Don't blame me. I don't know. But I think he's pretty much around for some time. Like now that I know of him, he's pretty much around for some time. And I think one of the best things is for him to get educated and stop living in him and a lot of people like him who do different things. Because like the as a trans community, we acknowledge that we humans who make mistakes, right? But it's what we do after we make these mistakes. And living in your ego that, oh, like I really didn't do these people anything, or I didn't really do anything, that's not gonna solve this problem. It doesn't make anything better. You're gonna live your life as a straight heterosexual man, and black and brown trans women and trans people, trans men, trans people are going to face the effects of what you tell to a crowd of people feeling like they're being robbed of something. So a lot of it has to do with education, and people need to be mindful of how dangerous their words and their actions are when it comes to the trans community, especially for black and brown trans women.
I want to keep you in the hot seat a little bit longer, Twinkle, and just I really appreciate the fact that you brought up this issue of, there's a nuance there with race, there's a nuance there with class and wealth. But another layer to that is that, we are all Caribbean folk. And a lot of people come from this sort of perspective of, oh, this is white people issue, or this is, American, or this is English thing, or whatever. They think it's foreign. And I'm wondering, what do you think is the impact of these sort of foreign ideas on us locally in these regions? The fact is that, obviously we're still having a conversation around these things. So obviously they have an effect. So I'm wondering, like, what do you think is the direct effect on Caribbean communities specifically, or even, for example, from your context as Guyanese activists, as a Guyanese activist?
So what is the effect of like North American ideas being pushed into Caribbean spaces and things like that? That's what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm saying, like, the fact is that people say that this is white people think. So I'm wondering, like, what do you think of that? How do you think it affects us when people on one hand use people like, like Dave Chappelle to sort of legitimize their own feelings, but then on the other hand, they sort of brush this entire conversation off as foreign?
Well, it comes back to history. I mean, if you know your history of your people, you will know that sexual orientation, gender identity, the differences that exist comes way back longer than the time we're living in now. So when people say this is just a white people thing, I think they just don't know much about themselves and their history, right? And how far back we could trace gender identity and differences amongst people. But in terms of when people, but the other thing I want to say is that another part to it is that a lot of times Caribbean people or Caribbean trans people, Caribbean LGBTQ people are in such sheltered lives that when they see movements happening in North America, it gives them hope, right? That's for some people. And then there's also what you see, the bigger part of the movement, or what is known as the big part of the movement, where you have this white faces just carrying this movement. That's not what the movement looks like, right? The movement looks like Black trans women and Black queer people, brown queer people in the streets, doing work from a grassroots level, moving from corners to corners, helping each other out. So when they put the North American perspective, majority of what they're looking at is not what really is happening, especially if you look through the lens of Black and brown organizing and Black and brown liberation, right? Majority of our organizers here in America, like in New York where I live, from Haiti, Trinidad, they got roots to the Caribbean, right? And so when people think about the let's say the LGBT revolution or the LGBT movement, and they think about it as very white, it's really not white at all. It's just that white voices and white faces are given more spotlight other than the people who are really doing the work. When they think about these things, they should think about Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Those are people from Black and brown people from North America. So it's really not a white thing. It's just it was stolen by white people.
I love that, honestly, and this is the reality, right? The fact is that our ancestors were not they were not strangers to the concept of gender and sexual diversity. And I want to bring you in, Lewis, to talk a little bit more as well about what do you think is the sort of the Caribbean version of this movement from your perspective as a young activist working in this area. How do you think that this movement is sort of manifesting in your own space and in your own eyes in this region? Lewis, that was to you.
I lost the connection for a second. Can you just repeat that for just?
No, that's fine. I was asking, just kind of to take off from where Twinkle left off, this idea of the fact that this movement is led by a lot of Black and brown folks, and it's not something that's unique to our ancestors. We've had this history. I wanted to hear from you on your perspective. our Caribbean roots in this
There's
space.
this, yeah, there's this pattern of basically what I see it is as is, and this might be a little bit controversial, but I see it as a type of a Stockholm syndrome where we kind of, everything that is from the West is portrayed as good and holy, and everything that is not is portrayed as that's foreign, and things like Christianity, things like this Western way of living that we have adopted and treated as our own. If we really was to think about it, that is not our own. That is foreign, And before they came and brought those things, we were very much accepting of different beliefs. We treated uh trans people, trans and non-gender conforming people, we treated them as holy. It was a sacred thing, and it was only after when when white people came and brought these ideas that we started to change. And now that if you look at it, African people, we don't know about our culture, our roots, our religion. It's all just Christianity. And anything that's not that is, well, that's not from us, And I think we really need to examine it and examine. I believe it was it David Rod? It wasn't David Rudder. Was it Bob Marley? Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. The person who said that, we need to do that. We need to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, so we can see that that these different identities, they're not white, and even in America, just from, because I keep myself updated with different viewpoints from different parts of the world. And in America, the anti-trans movement, it seems like they view trans people as being created in 2005 by young people. But that's not true. There were always trans people in since the beginning of humanity. There were trans people, and we're always there. Um, it's just like if you watch a certain street line of TV shows from a certain period, you would think that there was no black people in the world. You would think that black people just don't exist. We don't. There's, and then all of a sudden you see in black people, and you're like, wait, what? Black people were just invented yesterday. There's the same thing with trans people. We weren't invented yesterday. It's just that people were trying so hard to hide us and push us under the rug. And we need to come out of that. And we need to start accepting our own. We need to start accepting ourselves and our differences, and change the whole paradigm, change the whole way of thinking, this whole westernized kind of conservative way of thinking. We need to move on from that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking here as well about, because you mentioned just now this idea, which was, you're right the second time about Marley, emancipate yourself from mental slavery is his quote. But the thing I'm thinking about here as well is that even in our own region, we have had for a very long time expressions of gender diversity, right? Even if it's not necessarily transness. We know that drag performance has been an integral part of our cultural expression for years, for centuries. And then even you can see that immortalized, for example, in the concept of the Dame Lorraine, the Trinidadian and Caribbean carnival character, where men are dressed as women. And I'm wondering, what would it look like, or how do we as Caribbean folk, and I'm opening this up to either of you to answer. You can jump in here when you're ready. But I'm just wondering, what would it look like for us to change that narrative? And, how do we begin to take our own indigenous concepts and bring the idea of gender diversity as a very sort of common and integral part of the human experience to the forefront of our movements, and to get people to recognize that actually we've been here all along. Diversity in gender and sexuality is not a new concept, and we've also even explored this in our own storytelling. So I'm wondering from you all, what do you think would be the best way for us to start to use these tools to kind of bring about that awareness that you talked about earlier as well, Twinkle?
I think so. One of the best way is always um one is to research our history and get it readily accessible to people, but also, like, let's say, rest in peace to the late Brandy. Um, we 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 make sure that memories of people live on, so that when we're not here, like a few years from now, when we're not here to have this conversation, people that come after us, they will know that we're always here. Because what the difference is, what was missing from those times of our ancestors existing. They didn't have people to do the work to document them, to say, well, okay, we want your legacy to live on. I think now we might have limited resources, but we have a bit more capacity to ensure that we memorize people, and we do as much as we can so that we can have history passed on to generation. We can have education teachings passed on. Um, that's the only two things I could think about right now. But maybe Louis got something more to add.
I just want to add that even though it's important, like talking about Dave Chappelle, and one of my admins, Terry, made a post on it. She knows a lot more about that incident than I did. She really researched it. Upset that she couldn't be here, but those things are important. But I think if we want uh, LGBT lives to matter here in Trinidad, we need to kind of, not only focus on international narratives, but we need to focus on our narratives here. We need to document our people, like even a simple thing like Brandy, after all of the work that she did, bringing people into her own home. A lot of these people didn't even know her after she passed, but then they would come and jump on social media to see these horrible things about her, that just because she's trans. They don't know anything about her, they just know she's trans, and just to like tarnish her legacy. So in order to change things here, we need to focus on local stories, local people, and incorporate different identities into our culture. And just saying our culture is a hard thing to say, because these days people don't even um, know if our national food is Pela or KFC, because we have so much foreign influences. I think that if we was to focus on our own art and our own culture, we could really have more pride in ourselves, because as long as we see LGBT identities as something on TV or something on Netflix, we will continue to see it as that's not us, you know? In fact, when I just started this community, the thing that pulled me over the edge to actually start our own group is because going on a LGBT group, I actually posted a post supporting trans people. This was probably almost 10 years ago. And somebody said, "Why are you posting that here? We don't have any trans people here." And I'm in the closet, so I said I didn't. At the time, I was very closeted, so I didn't even say I'm trans. I just said, "Well, you never know. There could be trans people there." And they said, "Well, you know what? We don't need to make trans people say you're just wasting time," because they didn't know there were trans people here. So we need to make spaces to make our people feel comfortable coming out and make it really into a local thing. The last thing I want to say our group is actually planning to have a talent show. We just have virtual talent shows, but we want to have like a physical show where like trans kids, trans youth could, showcase their art. Because right now, being queer is a very right now the open spaces that we have are basically like a sexual kind of outlet. It's for you to find somebody and hook up. And a lot of trans people are not a lot of us are kids, young people or older people. Being trans, it's not really about the dating aspect. It's about your identity. And even LGBT, we need to have that sense of community, not just to hook up or not just to go to a bar or stuff, but we need to incorporate it as like part of our community, and have outlets for people here that identify as that.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you. And I think that's actually such an excellent point because if I think back to my teen days, not necessarily my queer teen days, because I didn't have those. I was very much closeted as a teenager. But I think back to my teen days and I think about the fact that there was generally not many safe spaces for a young person to exist in. And that doesn't seem to have changed as yet. And it's especially worse if you are a young person of a marginalized background, right? And I think one of the things that has kind of emerged through this conversation so far is this consistent idea that we need to know who we are. And that knowing who we are and not what anybody else has told us we are or other stories from outside that we try to adapt to ourselves. Knowing who we are becomes an integral part of us sort of also normalizing or, ensuring that the dignity of all people becomes enshrined in the way we operate. And so I'm wondering now, and I think I might maybe, ask Claire if you'd like to jump back in here and ask, what are some of these stories that you think need to be told so that we could actually start to show folks, hey, we exist as queer people, as non-binary people, as trans people, we're here, and we are people too. What do you think are some of these stories that you think need to be put out there to kind of help normalize the narrative of our existence?
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to empowering like local LGBT people, there's not really a lot of stories you could think of apart from like people who really put themselves out there, right? And as far as I know, I don't know any famous transgender man. I don't know any famous non-binary person from Trinidad and Tobago. I pretty much only know like two famous transgender women from Trinidad and Tobago, and that would be Joelle de Souza and Brandy Rodriguez. Now, Brandy was very much an influential person in the community. She was like one of the, how do I say this? She was like the driving force, the backbone of our local trans community. And to lose her so suddenly, it was a shock to a lot of us. Even me, I still trying to come to terms with it. I'm going to the memorial tomorrow at the W Art Gallery. Apart from her, Joelle de Souza, she's very well known in Trinidad and Tobago for being transgender, right? I even trained by her for about 2 months. And the thing about her, she does a lot of work for the San Fernando area, but I've never known her to be active in the community, right? And what I think we need more of is for Trinidad and Tobago, the younger generation, right? The younger people, because our generation is growing day by day, right? And the younger one is still coming up. And all I want is for the younger generation to have what I didn't have growing up. And what I didn't have
was a lot of inspiration, a lot of guidance in terms of finding myself. I had to do that all on my own, right? And I had to muster the courage to start coming out as what I am. And even now, it still feels like an uphill climb for me, right? But I'm grateful, very grateful that I am part of Transcend NBTT and I'm having this opportunity to connect with Womantra. And I see a brighter future already. But here's the thing, I don't want to depend on everyone else, every Tom, Dick, Harry, Jenna, Jane. I don't want to depend on everyone out there to inspire me. I want to stand with Transcend NBTT. We now start. We really now start, right? We ain't really reached out there yet, but we now start, and I just have a really good feeling that we are going to be the change that we want to see in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean eventually. And who knows, might make it worldwide, right? But one step at a time, right? When that bridge reach, we will cross it. And for now, all I can say is that we are doing our best to become the change that we've been craving since we were young children, right? And I never really saw myself as a religious person either. I grew up in a Hindu family, and they've always pushed this idea in my head, right? That you had to worship and do prayers and all kind of thing, and that will make you a good person. But then eventually I started exploring myself and realizing that I'm not like these people. I'm different. I started talking to my mom. I said, I don't think I'm religious, but I do know that when I die, I want to leave the world in a better place than when I first met it, right? And I guess that one thing that I said to my mom, it just keeps ringing in my head. I need to make the world a better place. And I won't do that alone. I have Transcend NBTC with me, and they won't do it without me, right? They can always count on me as well, right? And we're here for you. We support Womantra. Yeah, that's what I can say.
I mean, I just wanted to add something that
Yeah,
Talia said, like with not having, not having somebody when you were younger. When I was younger, I felt like I was the only one in the country. I was the only trans person, like in the whole country. I didn't even know about Joel and stuff. But starting this group, a lot of like the younger trans kids, like 14, 15, they just call me dad. Like, can you adopt me? I
They don't
cannot.
call me mom too.
I'm 26. I can't adopt anybody. I don't have my own place, but I'm glad that I'm there to like. I'm glad we have this community that I didn't have. When I was being bullied and stuff, I couldn't go and run to my group chat and be like, make a long angry. They just do that. Make a long angry wall of text like, oh my gosh, these transphobic people. Look at what they did to me, and then everybody just talk to them. I didn't have that. I just sit in my room and cry. So I guess we already doing something different, which is good.
absolutely. And I think too, just even you sharing that, it kind of in a weird way you answered the question I originally asked, which was, what are some of these stories that need to be told, right? And I think that is actually one of them. It's the fact that there are so many of us who identify as something other than what, society has said you're supposed to identify as, that feel so alone. And I think that's really the thing that needs to change, is that, we need to know that we aren't alone, and that our identity isn't wrong, it's not dirty, it's not bad, and that the things that happen to us that, are hurtful, that are traumatic, that shouldn't happen to us, are not because of us. They're because we live in a society that doesn't recognize our humanity. And I want to ask you, Twinkle, not just about stories. If there are any you'd like to share, I welcome you to share that, absolutely. But also, what do you think it means to create safe spaces for gender and sexually diverse people, but especially, coming from understanding that the trans experience, particularly the trans femme experience, is one that is met with such violence? What do you think it would take, or what do you think it looks like to create safer spaces for trans-identified and non-binary identified people to exist peacefully?
One is to empower our community so that we lack certain skills to go about getting work of like a safe space, or creating a safe space for ourselves. Is like, if we empower those who don't know about this work to get there, so they can care for their trans sibling, rather than people who really are not from our community and really don't care about our community creating this space for us. Because I remember I had this experience in Guyana where there were people who were working for this community, or where who we had to work, who we reported to. Like, you could say they were our bosses and stuff like that. And some of the actions that they took against us, one is like valuing us based on our educational background, like how much of a degree we have, seeing us as incompetent, or feeling like you can just run up in our space when you feel like, because you kind of control things. I think we want to be in control of what our movement looks like, and you should allow us that space and time, and trust us that we can take care of us, not you think you can take care of us. Because many times your approach are harmful and dangerous, and they don't cater for the different situations of trans people. Many of us, a lot of us may be sex workers. Another set of us might be people who just coming from a normal house, from the different places in life, you understand? So when you group and lump all of us into one space, I think when you give people, when you put us in the hands of people to take care of us, it doesn't serve us much of a good as trans people. So what I would want to see is we being empowered to lead our work, and our safety. And where that empowerment, or where that leadership doesn't exist, if you really care about our safety and our well-being, you help us to get our people there. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I wanna ask Claire or Lewis, if either of you want to jump in here to talk about as well. What do you think it means to exist in a safe space, or even to think about what does a future where gender diverse people are afforded dignity looks like? What does that future look like? Yeah.
Right. Well, oh, sorry. You can go ahead.
Yeah. So to me, a future where gender sexually diverse people can exist peacefully, right? That future to me, it seems so bright. It feels like a dream just hearing those words in my ears, that little sentence. It feels like a dream. I'm just envisioning it already. It's like paradise for me, because that's what I am. I'm diverse. I'm part of the minority group. And eventually, when we aren't seen as abnormalities, when we aren't seen as what's the word I'm looking for? When we aren't viewed as an abomination, right? The world will be so much easier to live in. Breathing wouldn't be a chore, because sometimes that's how it is feel for me. I just feel like breathing is a chore. Like someone does have to tell me to breathe so that I can stay alive. That's how it is feel. And it's not pretty. It's not a pretty experience what I've been through. But I see a better future for us. And the fact that we're having this discussion right now, it shows that people out there, people care. You care. Womantra cares about us. And Trans and NBTC, we care about our community. And we're having this discussion to share our ideas, our opinions, facts even. Facts are more important than opinions. Because without facts, there won't be anything to have an opinion about, right? I feel like a spiral in here. Let me go back to the point. that future looks really good because once there's a space, not only in the family, within the household, when there's a space everywhere where a person can walk without feeling to carry pepper spray with them, right? That's a good place to be, right? You feel liberated, you feel normal, you feel like part of the world. You don't feel cast out or banished per se. You don't feel like that. You feel included, and that's what we'd like to push for. We'd like to see a space in not only in your child bedroom, not only in the house, right? We want to see from the employer down to the person working for you, treating you with respect, right? And it's not that hard because a trans person, right now, a trans person is more than just a man in a dress or a woman in a pants, right? A trans person is more than just that. We're human, right? We have experiences like pretty much everyone else. We have lives to live, right? Some of us want to raise kids. A lot of us want to raise kids and have families, the same plans. A lot of us want to get married and things, right? We want to have lives. And if we can't be treated with respect and simple understanding, we can't really live our lives. We had to work twice as hard to get that. And yeah, I'd really like to see that future come into being, right? I really like to see that dream become a reality for the next generation, hopefully for us too. Because, I mean, that's what we're working for. We don't know what they're going to work for, right? So, yeah. Take the mic, Lewis.
Okay. I just like to preface this by saying, you know, how things are right now. Like people, like what I put in the chat. You know, people feel like they need to protect themselves from transness. You know, there's this kind of fear around being trans and a lot of misconceptions. Like at the place where I work, we were having like a promotion for Women's Day that was some kind of like a 50% discount. And they started the morning by saying, and we never hear about trans people except if it's something negative. They started it by saying, make sure the discount is only for biological women. And it was a big joke, you know, because nobody thought anybody would be offended. You know, trans people, they're not really, because we are all closeted here, most of us. When people, you know, make these kind of jokes and things, they don't think there's any trans people there, but where they are, we're in the society and we're real people that are feeling the effects of these jokes and these ignorant comments. So, you know, a world that accepts trans people would be like a educated world, you know, where people learn about us, you know. The reason why I think that in the LGBT movement that lesbian and gay people were so much faster accepted is because that and it might be controversial me saying that. I don't mean it in any kind of way, but like, you know, there was a lot more acceptance around lesbian and gay people. And I think it has to do with the fact that, you know, sexuality is just one aspect of your life. It's who you love, basically. It's who you love. But with being trans, it's kind of like your personality. It shows on the outside, you know, it shows with how you dress, you know, it shows with even, you know, when you look at somebody's hand movements, somebody might say that that man moves their hands when they talk like a woman, you know. It shows with how you talk, how you walk. And because it shows so much, that's why it's it's harder to understand because it's more complex, and it's not something that a lot of people might get frustrated and be like, why don't people just understand being trans? Why don't you just accept us? It's so simple. But a lot of people, they just don't know. They just don't know, and their society has taught them something negative. So on top of not knowing, they on a blank slate, they don't know. And on top of that, they've been taught these negative things. When you see a trans person, they're probably gonna try to force you to do this, and they're probably gonna try to do this to you, and they're probably gonna try to make you, thing, and they're gonna, hurt your children and climb into your bed at night. I don't know, So what it starts with is that we need to teach proper gender education, not just proper sex education, but proper gender education, because it's already out there in, scientifically mainstream, the scientific consensus. They know that gender, it's been known for many years now that gender, it's a social construct. It's made up of social constructs, biological constructs, psychology. It's not just one thing. Gender is a combination of things. And if we change, if people could change the way that they see gender in the world and kind of be a bit more, knowledgeable about what gender really means, and how it affects people, it would be a better world for not just trans people, but women too. Will be a better world for women and trans people and men, because then there wouldn't be these misconceptions and these stereotypes that are just hurting everybody consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, one of the things I think, because you mentioned, for example, the fact that there's a lot of misinformation, there are misconceptions, there's confusion. And I think too, one of the things that we don't talk about enough as part of this movement is also the power of language, and the way that language can be used to both empower but also disempower. And even the very words that we use now, lesbian, gay, transgender, homosexual, all of these are actually words that were once upon a time created with the sole intent of othering people. They weren't actually created as empowering terms, but slowly over time, the movements adopted these terms as terms of empowerment, right? And I think that there's still so much confusion out there around our experiences, and people simply don't understand. I mean, even I learned only recently that non-binary, and when I say recently, I mean like in the last 3 or 4 years, that non-binary is considered part of the trans experience, and I didn't know that, and I had been shocked because I always considered myself to be a non-binary and gender non-conforming person. When I came into the language, I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense to me. And I think a lot of people also, for them, their own selves, it's always this revelation. But I also want to take a second now, just to recognize that there have been people though who have tried to chart the way, and I wanted to open the floor to any of you who wants to share any thoughts or comments about somebody that you did know, whether personally or from a distance, who you'd like to take a minute to honor as we celebrate as well the Day of Transgender Remembrance. Just wanted to open it up to any of you to tell us more about somebody who you'd like to remember or honor in this moment.
Hi. So I'd like to start. Firstly, I would like to say that, oh gosh, what you said about like trans and lesbian and gay being created by cis people to describe us, and then after they created those terms to other us, then they say, why is there an alphabet mafia? Why do you have all of these pronouns and stuff? Honestly, I don't even think that if people wouldn't have to be afraid for their lives to be beaten up and hurt and stuff, people might not even care that much about pronouns and all that stuff. But because there's this construct that a woman is this and a man is this, transgender people have to use certain pronouns, because look, if you're saying that this is what a man is, in the world, and this is what I feel like I am, then I fit into this box of what a man is, and that's how I feel comfortable, because you created that construct. But then they say no, you're a man, you're not a man, you have to be a woman, but still don't have all these labels. It's confusing. But somebody who really inspired me in this community, there's actually two people that I would like to say, because they're the only people that have opened up their homes to us, to our community, just free of charge, just open up their home. And the first one is Brandy. When we started this community, we have a bunch of cute little pictures, but we cannot share them because we're all closeted. But we used to have picnics, but that was a little bit dangerous, and the turnout was low because, especially trans women, they would feel ugly coming out as a man. They wouldn't want to put on the, they don't want to look, masculine, but then they want to come out and be themselves. But then you have to be out in the open in a picnic, because I don't have a place. I live with my parents still, so I don't have a place. They don't have a place. And then the first time Brandy from TT Trans Coalition, she heard about us. She was like, "Yeah, come to my house. Come to my house, and you guys could come and put on your clothes and just be yourselves." And that that night was one of the, it was like, from the, just to describe it, like from the pictures, I was just beaming all night, just smiling like some kind of psycho or something. I was just so happy, like my cheeks hurt from smiling so much after when I came home. I was wearing a suit. The ladies got dressed up. They got their makeup done. Wade did their makeup. Before he opened up the W Art Gallery. He did all the ladies' makeup, and everybody felt so welcome. And Brandy, she is just she's like, if there's a dark clouds around, she's like the ray of sunshine. She's always laughing, always smiling, always, making things feel like, just making things feel so hopeless, so hopeful. It's like you're feeling like if you're in a different world than the regular world that you're living in. So I would have to say Brandy, because, well, she actually was the first person who actually physically did something. Because a lot of people say a lot of encouraging words and laugh and smile with you, and they ain't gonna do nothing for you. You on your own. But she actually did something. And Wade actually, he opened up his art gallery to us as well, to have the show. Um, but not just to have the show, to like meet up, to be with each other, but we wanted to like have a physical fundraiser and actually pay for the show, because we want to keep the art gallery there. We want to support the art gallery. But so I would say Brandy and Wade for me. And they're trans. Brandy was trans, and Wade is non-binary. Although he's probably too old for that. Like he doesn't know nothing about non-binary, nothing. He's just Wade. Wade is just Wade, but he's definitely part of us, and we're happy for him, and Brandy as well. Well, we were happy for Brandy. It was just so sudden. It just doesn't even feel like if she's no longer with us. It still feels like she's there. Like I could just call her on the phone. But yeah, those are the two people.
Claire or Twinkle, did either of you want to share any remembrances?
Hi. So I mean, I would second to Lewis on Brandy, because I was right there with him that night when Brandy opened up her home to us around Valentine's Day this year. That was literally months ago, and this lady was there, and honestly, it just felt like home to me.
Yeah,
Better
we
than home.
exchanged our clothes. The woman,
Better than home.
I gave my female clothes to the trans woman, and they gave their male clothes to me. And I was like, it was really cool. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was a liberating experience. And what he also said about if there's ever a dark rain cloud around, the minute Brandy pop up, it's sunshine and rainbows. That was her. And in addition to that, I mean, Joelle de Souza is still alive, right? But how I remember her, I trained by her for 2 months, but then I fell ill and I had to quit my course. I was doing a cosmetology course at her salon. And all I can say is she was a really caring person, right? Now, she might not seem to be as involved in the trans community or in the LGBT community throughout Trinidad. Let's face the facts. She's a busy woman. She has her business to run. She has her workers to pay and all of that. She also taking care of the dogs. She running Animals Alive TT. You ever hear about that organization? She running it as an animal shelter. And what I remembered from my experience with her is that she's a great listener. She really is a great listener. And she was really helpful in helping me find who I was. Within that 2 months there, my parents, they would tell me not to come out to anybody. Don't tell anybody you're trans. Don't tell anybody you're gay, you're this, you're that. Right? When I sat down with Joelle and even some of the employees at her salon, and we would talk and share things about one another, right? I came out to them. I wasn't ashamed to say that my name is Claire and my pronouns are she, her, right? I wasn't ashamed because Joel put it in such a way that I can exist as I am in that place. And there were days where I would show up to the salon in a full face of makeup. Sometimes I would put on lipstick and thing, and I'd be outside helping clients. I'd be washing the hair, right? Blow drying the hair, all kind of thing. It was a good experience. And without Joel and Brandy in my life, I don't know I don't really know what I'd be right now, especially without Joel, because I met her and that gave me the courage to go to like pride parades and all of that. And that's how I met Brandy. The first time I met Brandy was for the 2019 Pride Parade in the Queen's Park, Savannah. That's where I met her first. And then when I heard this name again, when Lewis and company, when we was talking about um, meeting up for Valentine's Day, when I heard the name Brandy Rodriguez, I say, wait, now I meet that lady already, right? And then it happened. We had the best time. We had at the time of our lives, and then it just feels like we lost something so good. But I have faith that we will carry on what she started because she really laid down a foundation for us. And we will carry it on. We will do great things for the community and the next generation that coming up. I'm pretty sure that we'll put things in place for them to just keep it going and keep on improving. Never stop improving, never stop evolving. Yeah, that's what I gotta say.
Ashe, thank you. And Twinkle, anybody you wanted to remember or talk about in this moment?
So two things I want to two set of people I want to talk about. Brandy would be last, but first I want to remember, as a young trans person, the home and the place that I come from was really nothing that could have put me in the place where I am today, or to build me as the individual I am today, right? And if it wasn't for Black trans women and my trans siblings, that when I was thrown out of my house, and my trans mother, who picked me up and said, "Well, we got a life to live, and you can be all right." And there's so much experience, there's so much sisterhood, there's so much love. There's just I've lost quite a few friends. People die to murder, violence, like so many things, right? So I just want to remember my entire community that's played a great part in my life. But then now I want to talk about Brandy. So, what many of you might not know, when Brandy come to Guyana, Brandy best place to be was with the sex workers at night. She never wanted to be nowhere else. And so if when she come for a meeting, she would be on the she would call me up and say, well, sis, come get me when I get to she said, girl, you got to take me on the road tonight. I got to go and see the girls. And then she can come on the road and she can hang all night on the road with the girls, and she can be every corner, every place that we at. And just meeting with the girls, talking stories. We can take a little drink. I'm sorry, I ain't got a Guinness right now to take a sip from my sister because she love a Guinness. But she really made an impact on people's life. Like she in Trinidad, everywhere she go, she had a imprint on somebody. There are many girls that really looked up to Brandy from Guyana as a leader and as a mother to the community. And Trinidad suffer a great loss, but I think as the Caribbean as a whole, we've lost somebody that a trendsetter, as they would say. We've lost a trendsetter, and my greatest wish is that for Louise and like Claire say, all young trans people and non-binary folks to just let her legacy live on, and let us don't put it down like that, because she started something great and she's giving you the few tools. Now you can just carry this forward, and everywhere you go, just walk with her on your shoulders.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. We'd actually like to take just a minute now to actually take a moment of silence in Brandy's honor and remember her and all of our other fallen trans siblings. And I'd love if we could put up our dedication to her just for a second so that we could take this minute to remember Brandy. Thank you so much to each of you for joining me tonight. I mean, this has been a really wonderful conversation. I'm so grateful that we were able to have this conversation and to dedicate this time as well in Brandy's honor. I firmly believe that, there are people coming up now who are going to take on her legacy and who are going to do her justice and her memory justice. And I firmly believe as well that in this region, we are creating new spaces, we are charting new paths, and we are doing the work that needs to be done to change the narrative and to create a new world where the dignity of all of our lives and all of our identities is honored. So I'd like to just open the floor, and I'll start with Claire to ask if you have any final thoughts before we wrap up. Just give us your closing thoughts and we can say goodnight.
Well, my closing thoughts on this discussion is that I think we had a very productive one. We got a lot out, we shared a lot, and I'm really thankful for giving us as trans people this space to share our ideas and our stories. It's been really nice. And we look forward to connecting with you again in the future and possibly doing some feminist work with you. However, yeah, that's what I see. Yeah. So I guess I can pass the mic on to Lewis now, or Twinkle, anyone. Yeah.
I mean, I will go now. I think my closing thoughts would be that, as a community, our work doesn't stop at these panels. And then we are brothers and sisters keeper, and that, some of us got different backgrounds and different things, that we're different places in our life. But I think one thing must always be possible for us is to have an open space for each other, where we can not like I don't mean the house, but where we could accommodate each other, whether it's for learning, whether it's for sharing ideas, whether it's for even holding each other accountable for something that we've done wrong. Because, like I said, we're human and we would make mistakes, or we may not do something that we like to each other. But I think we should keep the goal of creating a safe, a sustainable, uh, what else? A rich future for our community. And it would only take for us to get there, we must able to work together and just don't let our work stop at panel discussions alone. And another thing is that I'm always available, who know me, I have a Facebook account. But when I don't have that, when I don't have a Facebook or a social media anymore, I can still be available, and I'm here to just for, I mean, whatever way I can help with communities, whether you're from Guyana, whether you're from Trinidad, as long as you're part of my community, you can reach out to me. You can always, when I get your message, I'll get back to you. So that'll be it for me.
Hi, I just want to thank you so much for giving us this platform. Just the fact that we have this platform here now tonight, just for trans people to talk about their own experience from their perspective instead of being talked about, which is usually what happens. We're talked about and we don't really talk first person from our perspective. It just means that things are changing already, and I see a lot of positivity in the future. And we have lots of plans at Trans and NBTT to continue meeting up, to continue, having discussions, and we hope that things continue to move in this direction, in this positive direction.
Well, thank you to each of you for joining me tonight. Thank you for agreeing to this conversation, but also for showing up and, for sharing your own perspectives, your thoughts, your ideas. I mean, the point is that integral to our experience as Caribbean folk is also the art of storytelling. And so it's so important for us to tell our stories. And I think that, I really hope that we can continue to do that work as well. And as you said, Twinkle, for us to also find ways to hold each other in the good times and the bad, so that we can continue to be able to take up space to share our stories and to be heard and to be seen. So I want to again just say a massive thank you on behalf of Womantra to each of you, and also thank you to our tech person, Johanna, and the background, keeping us going steady and smooth for the entire time. And we really just would like to wish all of you a wonderful night, and to all of our followers and all of those who may be listening into the conversation, just, hoping that we can take the key messages further. Thank you.